Actually, I have a little bit of a surprise because just in the last few moments, the Cosmic Consciousness Collective that is called Abraham has actually entered into the field. Um, I will address the issue of the laws of attraction firstly because it is probably that cosmic law which is most in current discussion and attempt by humans at management and manipulation of it. So the first thing I must really do to put things in a proper context is to acknowledge the true sacredness and cosmicity and universality of the law of attraction, and certainly to give great, great, great homage if you're from the East Coast, or homage if you're from California, to the cosmic collective known as Abraham, this great syncytium of cosmic intelligence, which has served so well, so generously, so vigorously over these last several decades of transiting and transmitting so much knowledge about the cosmos and levels of understanding of the cosmos through their human intermediaries, Esther and Jerry Hicks. So, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Esther and Jerry, because what you have done is a service which transcends any kind of construct of honoring that we have in the regular human sense of experience. Like, it's like totally well beyond the Nobel Prize, okay, or the Stockholm Peace Prize, or the MacArthur Genius Award, or any of that kind of stuff. And it's certainly beyond money itself as any kind of indication of valuation, and thus honoring reciprocity for what you have done and what you have brought into the world as vehicles for such cosmic intelligence. The law of attraction was made initially very, very popular through the advent of a series of projects called The Secret. And this was brought into creation through a person in Los Angeles by the name of Ms. Rhonda Byrne. And this was a great noble undertaking, a great historic, very, very important undertaking for the world. It was the directive of the collective known as Abraham through their intermediaries, Esther and Jerry Hicks, in conjunction with a number of other members of an organization which is called the Transformational Leadership Council, of which I have been a member, although a very non-participatory or peripheral member for the last 8 years or so. This effort was to bring in and popularize the teachings of Abraham through the elaboration of this cosmic law called the law of attraction. And so much gain has come from this. And at the same time, so much distortion has come from this. And that's unfortunate, but that is actually what happens in the course of vulgarization as I described it before. Well, the law of attraction essentially relates to the process of flow into field, into form, and the interactivity of waves of intent into the delineation of the dimensionality of experience. So in other words, if we say in a very simple way that Source has the intention to create something, and as something becomes a thing, as it transits through these intermediate phases into its state of existence, it has associated with it innumerable waves, waves that flow in the ethers, waves that flow as expression of intelligence, as intention, and thus as intent. These waves are the waves which ultimately consolidate in creating this thing called a thing. Okay? And such is the same thing that happens to this kind of thing called a human being. And when this human being and these yous human beings get together within yourselves and amongst yourselves, amongst one another, you have communion and you have community, and you have the experience and the expression of desires and intentions to create and to experience things. And so essentially the law of attraction was presented to you so that you would have a sense of understanding that from your subjective perspective on life, on reality, on existence itself, there are these overriding principles and this thing called the law of attraction, which is an accumulative constellation of how things actually go from any level of manifestation to another level of manifestation. And of course, because it was given as lecturing, it was given as sharing of knowledge to you as humans for the benefit of your understanding of your own humanity and your relationship, therefore, as human beings and sentient beings to the greater field of life and experience, you begin with the self-oriented perspective. As you begin with the self-oriented perspective, then you would say, what do I want? Naturally. What happens if I do something? What does that mean into the field? How does the field send something back to me? So the idea of something coming from within, going to without, something coming from without, going to within, or that which is reflective of an intention sent out into the cosmos, sent out into spirit, sent out into the universe, how the universe might hear me, how the universe might reflect back those wave patterns towards me to manifest something which is called my intent, or to manifest something which is called God's intent or God's will, or the laws of physics and the laws of manifestation. Again, however, though, because humans tend to look at things from what I call an anthropocentric perspective, and this anthropocentric myopia, which is to kind of like say the only thing that really matters is that which affects me and my humanity and inside of my skin, and us humans inside of our collective humanity and inside of our collective skins in that which we call our social setting, our social group. So therefore, what began to happen in the popularization of this explication and elaboration of the cosmic law of attraction was that it became more and more contracted into the level of concern about the human experience from the perspective of humanity. And from the perspective of humanity, the overriding social cultural milieu tells us that it's about what I want, how to get what I want in a very simplified, vulgar way. And as a result of this, the law of attraction, as the project called The Secret went through different iterations and expansion of different people coming into play as presenters, as leaders, much of that then left the conversation about the spiritual realms and the cosmic realms. And much of it became much more materialized. And thus the construct and the context of concern was about materiality, so-called success principles, so-called manifesting my reality. And thus this humanocentric myopia became more and more selfishness-driven. So as it became more selfishness-driven, it became less about understanding the cosmos. It became more and more about my pleasure principles, how I can use these laws, these principles to get more of what I want. I want to get more money. I want to get more success. I want to get more sex. I want to get more pleasure and joy in life. And then, for the most part, other concerns which were beyond the personal level, what I call level one of concern and self-indulgence, these other areas became secondary, tertiary, quaternary, etc. So what you found was that more and more over the course of this evolution of this billion-dollar industry, plus or minus, of this project and experience called The Secret, what you found was that the overriding and overwhelming popularity of such was no longer based in understanding cosmology, understanding cosmicity, understanding God, understanding creator, understanding nature, understanding true balance and harmony, understanding universal love, generosity, compassion, etc. It became mostly about materiality, the material reductionistic world of self-service. Now, this stems from a whole lot of other stuff that are crude, barbaric, and dinosauric paradigms of how human society is organized and what human consciousness is about. In particular, this thing called the Maslow hierarchy. It becomes an overriding justification for the distortion in application of the cosmic law of attraction, because according to the Maslow's hierarchy, we can't really talk about God, and we can't talk about collective unity, and we can't talk about infinite love and compassion until we first get our physical needs and our material life together. So this became another way of justifying the disturbance and the distortion of the universal cosmic law of attraction, to delimit it to, first and foremost, most important application of this law is me, myself, and I getting over, getting better, getting so-called successful, and getting happy as a result of material success. From there, then, I may begin to have more of a concern of cultural, familial, tribal, societal success and pleasure and happiness, because I myself am a more successful person, and since I'm a more successful person, I'm going to be a healthier, happier, more generous, kinder, philanthropic person. And then I'll do something as a consequence of first attaining those states. I will do more to help the world. So that is the distortion dynamic. Now, that's the history of the law of attraction itself. There's something else that the law of attraction, at the level of humanity and the human experience, has to also interface with. The law of attraction interfaces in a very strongly dialectical way with what I call the law of reciprocity. I will probably have to give a more detailed elaboration on the law of reciprocity in general, but at least for the moment, in terms of understanding its relationship to the law of attraction, it's important to have this sense. The law of attraction is about sending forth waves, vibrations into the field which carry the intelligence, the organizing intelligence of that intention as its source of emanating such waves into the field. If that's a thought, it's a human thought. If it's an action, whatever it is, as I mentioned before, all that comes from source must come into form through the intervening and intermediary processes of the flowing and the emanation of wave patterns. So when we begin to understand that wave patterns are the means by which cosmic intelligence, divine intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and the intelligence of all sentient beings, all intelligent beings, that such waveforms are not only emanating from that source, that intention, they are also rebounding in the field. They are also going forward, and they are also coming backward. And thus, when we talk about the engagement of these waves, this was one of the fundamental premises upon which people can conceptualize this cosmic law, the law of attraction. When we say, whatever I put out comes back to me. So if I put out positivity, positivity comes back to me. If I put out good vibes come my way. If I put out funky shit comes back to me. In essence, that's, the law of attraction in a nutshell, okay? But it actually represents a simplification of certain other cosmic laws, which I will elaborate on later, such as the law of resonance and the laws of potentiation. That is the simplistic elaboration on the law of attraction. there is an intention to put out a certain way of being into the universe in order also to receive that which corresponds to that which I put out, so that together those wave patterns will come together and attain what is actually resonance. Okay? And that will make it even more likely. It increases the probability curve so that that intention comes into what I call standing wave resonance, and that standing wave resonance then goes further into the next stage of manifestation. So this is how you create what you want. Again, law of attraction. Okay? Now, if we fast forward a little bit out there into recognizing all the millions of people who have invested in these commodities, on the teachings of The Secret, a lot of people have gotten what they wanted, exactly what they wanted, or some very close version thereof. A lot of people have been made very, very wealthy on, in essence, participating or co-conspiring in a certain bamboozling, in the words of the famous brother Malcolm X, bamboozling the population. And this is unfortunate also. But in essence, you're misrepresenting something, or you're catering to the more base, carnal, and personal level of self-indulgence while extolling the power of a cosmic law. There are certain ways to make that work, even at these very low levels. But the real deal is that the more you are trying to utilize some of these very, very high cosmic principles in such a confined, contracted way, as I'm in it for me, let me use this stuff to get what I really, really, really want, it means the more you have to be completely 100% congruent about what you want. Now, there are a lot of people who can be congruent, but most people are not. For example, the people who are congruent, who are very clear and defined in their principles and organization of life, and their values hierarchy, their ethics laws for themselves and how they engage other people, their spirituality, their honoring, their consistency, their notions of authenticity, their notions of integrity, even impeccability. Yes, these are character traits which would then naturally result in the emanation of more consistent wave patterns, and thus, as a result of the dynamics of the laws of attraction, are more likely to have more of these standing waves of resonance come into being. And as they come into being, yes, there is far greater likelihood that what they intend to manifest can become manifest. However, since most people are not there, most people found themselves wanting, wondering, why is it I've invested in all of this stuff and yet it ain't working for me very well? It's inspiring and it's educational, but it doesn't seem to be so effective. Now, I can't blame the law, can I? I guess I have to blame me. There's something about me. So, just like frequent flyer miles, you can put them out there all day long. 90% of them never get used. Or your mail-in rebate systems. You can offer that to induce customers. 80% of those rebates never get mailed in. Unfortunately, so much similarity applies to the applications of the secret program and the law of attraction. People are lured into this, have been. They have this self-orientation. They try to apply the principles with, indeed, generally quite limited success. There's two reasons for that. I'm going to have to go into the more important issue of that which explains the inconsistencies and manifestation of the law of attraction in the next video, just so that this is sort of compartmentalized and not continuous rambling. But suffice it to say, there is another side of manifesting the law of attraction for yourself. That side we can call the shadow side. So I'll talk about that just for a little bit, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back with what else there is in conjunction with the law of attraction, as I mentioned before, this dialectical relationship. Let's talk about the shadow. The shadow application of the law of attraction, and it's actually an induction of the law of attraction. It goes like this. Self-centeredness with ruthlessness more often gets me what I want. This is the world of narcissism. Malignant narcissists can be extremely successful. The ultra selfish person and personality that will have its own self-indulgence and self-satisfaction at practically any cost, at any expense to another. This kind of ruthlessness is actually, from the standpoint of understanding the physics of the metaphysics of wave generation, sends forth very consistent, clear wave patterns out into the universe. These wave patterns, therefore, are clean. They may be shadow in nature, meaning that they may be unethical, they may even be illegal, they may be perverted, they may be highly immoral, they may be questionably consensual. But if you really want to talk about someone who walks to the beat of their own drum and has that consistency of self-indulgent desire and intention, a pure, unwavering, unfaltering, go for me, I go for me kind of intention, that person actually has the opportunity to send forth quite a lot of consistent wave patterns out into the field. Therefore, those wave patterns will redound and thus increase and intensify the probability of manifestation of that which serves the generator of those wave patterns. Make sense? All right. Not too many people are that true and clear about who they are and what they want, and how much they're willing to pay to get what they want, or how much misery they're willing to cause anyone else in order to get what they want. But nowadays, due to the President of the United States and many of the celebrity population and other political circles, what we're seeing is the emergence of this popularized trend of psychopathology called narcissism. And the narcissism is actually a secondary derivation as a result of what has been the disturbance in the field, the greatest morphogenic field of humanity, by virtue of misapplication of the laws of attraction. That's one of the contributors to the emergent epidemic of narcissism, unfortunately. I give this forth in recognition to Abraham. I give this forth in recognition to Esther and Jerry. It is sad, and yet it is true. So that is the other way by which someone can become quite successful at utilizing this cosmic principle of the law of attraction in order to get something that they want. Again, it comes down to the cleanliness of a signal. The cleanness of a signal with the least amount of distortion. And when we're dealing with the shadow and a lot of the activities that come from human expression from this thing called the shadow, a lot of the times that is known, AKA, as ruthlessness, uncompromising intent. So, I will pause here. We'll take a moment's break. I'll get spiritual again. And we'll talk about the law of reciprocity and its relationship to the law of attraction. Thank you.